Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Live from Channel 5 studio in Belize City, it's Open Your Eyes, Start Your Morning Right with your hosts, Sabrina Daly and Isani Caetano.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Sabrina Daly.
And I am Isani Caetano. Good morning.
And good morning, Isani.
Good morning, Sab. Good morning.
It is Thursday. If Paul was here, he would call it Friday Junior. Yeah. I have to say, I feel like the week has been flying by quite quickly this week. What do you say?
Well, so far so good.
Yeah?
Right? It's my last day on the morning show for this week. Mm-hmm. And the past few days have been quite interesting in terms of everything that we've been able to discuss and the guests that we've had on the show. But yes, it's Thursday, and man, I can't wait to go home later on and just catch up with some sleep once again.
Yeah, I know you probably speak for a lot of us. It's just a lot of moving parts taking place in all of our lives. I know this week has also been back to school week.
Yes, it has.
For kids and for parents. And so with that comes a bit of adjusting. As much as it happens every year, more than once throughout the year, it does take a bit of adjusting. But Isani, we have quite a few topics to discuss. I know that there are many topics trending both internationally and online, and we have a discussion that we want to jump straight into. So let's go right into what's buzzing. Flooding all over social media, all over news outlets, both internationally and even being mentioned locally here in Belize, has been the devastating impacts of the California or the Southern California wildfires that has started yesterday, Isani. There has been thousands of persons being displaced. Over 1 million people are currently impacted by power outages. And the fire is still raging on. I understand that there are 6 separate fires taking place in certain parts of California. And based on certain shots that you are seeing, I mean, look at that. It's literally looking like a painting. We've seen aerial footage from the sky where the entire sky, the entire coast of California is just covered in smoke. And the only other color you see will be orange. Of course, when we mention this, we also have to mention that we do have Belizeans living in California, in the diaspora in general. And so it's important that we mention that because these are persons who may also be impacted by this wildfire at this time.
I think it's important to note that the wildfires are unseasonal. This would have been expected in the summertime, not necessarily at this time of year. We want to introduce to our viewers at home and abroad, of course, 2 guests who will be joining us via Zoom this morning. We have Myrna and DJ Easy. They're both in the LA area, and so they are joining us via Zoom. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's begin by talking about your observations of what's taking place where you are respectively in terms of this particular fire.
Go first, Myrna.
Hey, hi. So I'm in the Gardena area at the moment. I work at UCLA, which is in Westwood, which is closer to the Palisades area. And so because of that, UCLA, we just got word late last night that UCLA canceled classes for undergraduate students. And for grad students, they're going to go remote. For us, we're going to be working remote also the next 2 days just for our safety. for, anything can happen. It's moving pretty quickly. And so until it can contain it, that's where we stand. And it's very devastating, I could speak from my experience with UCLA that students are displaced. I got word late last night and some images from one of my cousins. He was being picked up by his mom. And the parking lot, this is after 11 p.m., the parking lot was packed. And that's because a lot of parents and families are picking up their kids, their loved ones, and taking them home probably for the weekend just to be safe. So that's one of the scenarios that,
From your observation, what has been the emergency response to this disaster?
I think we're still waiting for some data on that. You read so many things on social media, but from the authorities, I guess they're doing what they can. As of this morning, actually, I looked up and I found they said 7,500 firefighters have been deployed, to try to contain. And so I'm not the expert to tell you that that's enough or not enough, but I think the winds has been a factor. And it's my understanding that it's going to come down a little bit today. So hoping between today and tomorrow, they can contain some of these fires. That's the plan.
DJ Easy, let's get you in the conversation because you are also currently living in LA. Talk to us about the region that you are living in and what you're seeing right now. Are you seeing any impacts of the wildfires?
Okay. Good morning once again. I am closer to Hollywood. I'm South Central LA, and I'm similar to the situation that Myrna mentioned with UCLA last night. In the day yesterday, they called us about they sent out a countrywide alert that everybody should go pick up their kids from school because of the smoking issue. And even though it's all the way over there in Pacific, the impact is here in South Central. When you woke up, it was like still nighttime.
Right.
Everywhere was dark because of the smoke. You could smell it. You can feel it in your eyes. So it's and this is before the Hollywood fire. This is from the Pacific fire. Because the Hollywood started a little bit later last night. So yes, the effect is countrywide and it's affecting us. Everybody should wear a mask, especially today. Today is going to be a little bit worse than yesterday because more fires are burning.
Describe for us the feeling on the ground where you are. I know you have neighbors and other residents in the area. What has been their reaction to this? What's taking place?
Well, a lot of Belizeans live out here in Los Angeles, and we spread, so to speak. So I personally know a lot of Belizeans in Pasadena. I even had one of my close friends, her son. His structure was burnt down yesterday, so they lost everything, and everybody's concerned because it's like a family thing. So Central LA and Los Angeles is close when it comes to Belizean community. We're the largest Caribbean community here, so we're spread. So everybody attention is on this. Everybody wishing the best for everybody because a lot of friends, family, loved ones affected directly with this. Never had this happen here before, in a sort of disastrous manner.
One of the things that we have been learning as the fire has been raging on is that the spread in different locations, as I understand, there are up to 6 different wildfires since last night taking place in various parts of California. But it's due to the massive winds that we're also seeing or learning of. There are gusty winds up to 100 miles per hour, I understand, and that is causing a lot of the spreading to different parts of California. Is there any concern that you guys may also need to evacuate at some point should it reach your area?
I can speak on that. I think for us, where I'm located right now, no. But as EZB said, for the Belizean community, it's a huge population in the Los Angeles area. So I think every Belizean at home and abroad knows of someone, either a relative or a friend, a colleague, an associate, someone that's being affected by this fire. It's like all day, it's texting, email. Everyone is saying, my friend lost her home in Altadena, or you're hearing this is going to impact a lot of Belizeans, as EZB I'm sure would agree that we have a lot of Belizeans that are caregivers. They do nursing and so on, and they work in these areas. And so it's going to impact them a lot. It's going to impact a lot of the kids from the central Los Angeles area that's being bused out to Palisades. There are a lot of kids that attend school out there. I have a few friends that their kids go to in basketball leagues and stuff in Palisades. So it's gonna trickle down, and it's gonna take a while to get through this. If you're familiar with Los Angeles and you're seeing the images from Malibu, it's huge. It's just a lot of devastation, and we just have to hope and pray that they can contain it and it doesn't get worse.
Myrna, has anyone from officialdom spoken out with respect of this ongoing wildfire? Perhaps the governor or someone who is in some authority?
Yes, Governor Newsom been speaking, and Mayor Bass, same way. But again, I think, Isani, what's happening? It's happening so fast. It's fluid. It just keeps changing. You could look at the news an hour ago, and then an hour later, it's like the fire rage over so many more acres, and there's so many different fires happening. I think the authorities, the media, everyone is you're just trying to catch up.
Yeah.
That's all they're saying is that they're trying to get as much manpower and all the different helicopters and so on to try to contain. But the wind has been a factor, and as you've mentioned, the drought is an issue because we haven't had much rain. And so with the soil being dry and all that, it's a sad situation. I couldn't believe when you watch the videos how many structures the fire just ravaged through these structures. So
what we're seeing here are very powerful images in terms of the devastation that's currently taking place. I could only imagine what it would be like in terms of the economic recovery, because at the end of the day, you're looking at properties that are insured and you're looking at a massive payout at the end of it all. But at the same time, these victims have to rebuild. They at some point in time will have to start their lives all over again in terms of, finding new homes or building new homes if that were the case.
Even clothing on their backs.
Well, Isani, and Sabrina, there's been a lot of media talking about the insurance. A lot of people's insurance have been canceled in California. And so a lot of these people don't have insurance. It's a problem getting insurance because of all the fires that's been happening over the years. So that's another issue that a lot of these property owners will have to face. It's a sad situation all around. And like I said, I truly feel this will impact the Belizean community, not just the Belizeans, but all the Caribbean community, Hispanic community, because a lot of people work out in these areas. They travel from far, and it's gonna trickle down to the economy eventually, because it's a lot of money that they will need to recover.
To also piggyback on the question and really the notion that Isani posed of the recovery efforts, this is around the time where we really need to see people come together to support one another. And so can we expect any type of gathering or recovery efforts being done with the Belizean community, where persons perhaps back home here can send to support you guys in the diaspora?
I think as time goes on, Sabrina, we're going to have to wait and see who were really affected and so on, and then we could move forward with that, and probably fundraising, GoFundMe, if we know of any families that's in need. I have my platform, Belizean Vibes.com, and if we have to, and Easy B is very big in the Belizean community, also very supportive, and so I'm sure if there's a need, anyone needs some assistance and so on, I'm sure if they reach out to us, and there's something that could be done. We just don't know the depth of this devastation as yet.
Let's get to Easy B. Are you still there, Easy B?
Yes,
You paused for a minute. We lost you for a minute. You're back. I can hear you.
yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead. Let's get your take on any kind of assistance or any kind of relief efforts from your end where you are.
Well, as Myrna mentioned, it's still ongoing. So as we speak, city's still on fire. So until everything is over and all these fires are out and affected areas, and we gonna know like who need help. And in terms of the Belizean community, all Belizeans who are affected, we definitely want to be part of whatever they're gonna have or whatever they're gonna put together in terms of fundraising, support, etc. Because it's so many people. So the ones we know want to come home in terms of they know exactly who's part to turn to for help, where the city want help, where the government want help, and of course where we as citizens want to help out each other, at the end of the day. But it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
None of the fires are out as yet. The specific place that Myrna was talking about, Pacific, I don't know. That place, the way how I see it and the videos that I'm looking on, even now on TV, building process and starting life back process, you look at my whole lifetime to me. But in terms of supporting and helping out ours that are directly affected in Belizeans wise, we want to know maybe like by weekend. You can up there.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us virtually. I know that at this time, the only thing we can do, as you mentioned, is wait to find out when this will die down, and of course to discover ways that we can support persons that are in need. Please continue to stay abreast with what's taking place, and we will reach out to you guys as soon as we also are able to gather further information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And Isani, that has been such an important conversation for us to have, as we mentioned, because of the large Belizean community that is in LA alone. When we think of places that Belizeans have moved to in the United States, LA is at the top of the list. And so we continue to monitor that. But interestingly, what also has been making headlines in our news was a tragic ordeal that took place yesterday, resulting in not only a video footage showcasing what really was just an outrageous situation after the discovery of a brother-in-law essentially stabbing his other brother-in-law because of a jacket. Now, we were able to get a couple interviews from persons who saw what took place, and also family members of George Brown. But it's an overall devastating incident that took place yesterday. Isani?
All right, so yesterday morning we got word of a fatal stabbing incident down in Hopkins. And as is normal, we sent a team down there. But while our team was doing its work in terms of gathering the information as to what led to this deadly incident, elsewhere, there was an arrest being effected by 2 police officers. And what is interesting about this, and I know that the following statements will raise the ire of the police department, perhaps even the commissioner of police himself, but what we saw transpire in the amateur video yesterday was, to me, ineptitude and incompetence in terms of how they went about dealing with the situation, right? Now, I'm sure the police department will give its rationale as to why the suspect was walking around without being cuffed. I'm sure they'll explain away what took place there. But in terms of my own knowledge, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a law enforcement officer, no kind of training whatsoever, but I'm thinking that when you go in to effect an arrest, you place the individual in handcuffs, right? So what we've seen is one of the officers with the suspected weapon, he had a knife.
Stephen Flores.
Right? And another officer walking behind Mr. Flores. So both of them are walking behind Mr. Flores and he's uncuffed. He's walking. You have a group of individuals who may be related to the victim, and you could see the swell because there are threats being hurled, and eventually it leads to them stoning the suspect.
So I just want to say, because Marion spoke to one of the males that were in the crowd in the video that you will be seeing, And it's described as they discover that George Brown is dead.
Yeah.
He's stabbed and he's dead. But then Stephen Flowers then admits that he did the stabbing. Stephen Flores admits that he did the stabbing, and that's where you find the outrage taking place. And in this entire moment, the police are still present.
Yes, but going back to what I'm saying, the individual was not cuffed at all, right? So much so that when, yes, he in essence admitted to having killed Mr. Brown, and you see this swell taking place and stones begin to be hurled at him, he had time to go upstairs of his home, get a machete and come back out to rush after these individuals. The police are there firing warning shots and what have you, but in my opinion, it doesn't seem as if though they had control of the situation at all. And this is why I'm describing it as inept and incompetent.
Yeah.
I don't know how better to describe it, but yes, this is when this video came out yesterday, all of us were looking at it as, what the hell is happening here?
Absolutely no clue what's taking place. As you can see on the video, this was after Flores essentially had the time to go up to his house, retrieve a machete, and then run after these gentlemen. And at this time, the police officer, who's really very slowly strutting behind Flores, is actually equipped with a weapon. What you did not hear were the warning shots, as Isani mentioned, that they did fire, but that was to no avail in calming the situation either. There's a lot of questions, I think, that could be answered when it comes to a situation like this. It would be interesting to hear from the Commissioner of Police. What would be a more appropriate action from the police?
Yeah, but let's not lose sight of what actually triggered this event. It was a jacket. So the suspect was seen wearing his brother-in-law's jacket. There was an initial exchange of words. The suspect gets on a bike, finds his brother-in-law, throws the bike at him. This is according to what the sister shared with us yesterday. Throws the bike at him. There was an exchange of punches and fisticuffs. And then during all of that, George Brown was fatally stabbed. Yeah. He tried to run back and did not reach to where he was going. He fell there mortally injured. But again, it's over a jacket. And when you listen to what the sister was saying, at some point she too wanted to borrow the jacket and he refused. There it is.
Yes.
He refused, you know, and I just think this is mind-boggling. Just looking at the circumstances surrounding this incident in Hopkins yesterday is, to me, completely crazy.
I mean, the interview that Marian was able to conduct with persons on the scene revealed that, according to them, Flores was indeed someone known to easily be brought to anger.
He has anger issues.
Apparently, he was an abusive partner, and this isn't something that they essentially expected from him. They didn't think that he would actually murder someone, but he was really prone to have anger issues, as you mentioned. Such a sad story.
Even when one of George's siblings, a sister of his, attempted to get involved, she too came under threat of being injured as well. So yes, I think this, in my opinion, is all the more why the police should have acted swiftly to subdue him with handcuffs and what have you. Again, they will provide an explanation as to what transpired there, but to me, it's just, you know, it's just altogether crazy.
Absolutely. Well, just before we wrap up, Isani, I know that you and April spoke of this yesterday, equally as outraging, really, hearing that there was discussions or really just a throw out of the possibility of the Gulf of Mexico being naming as the Gulf of America. Now, I don't know who gets to say or how that change takes place, but we heard a response, a fire back.
Yes, so yeah, the Mexican president, Sheinbaum, responded in jest, in a sense, at what President-elect Donald Trump has seemingly put out there. But she took it from the perspective of some historical context, right? Before the United States was named the Great United States of America, it was called or referred to by historians and other people who have been following this the history of the continent and its countries and what have you as Mexican America.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and that's what makes it funny, right? So it's almost as if though she dug into the history books and came back and said, well, hola.
Well, that's her rebuttal, according to her.
But
no way, Jose.
In a general sense, there has been this unease, right? When you look at the conversation about the deportation of persons who have been in the United States illegally or who have been in the criminal justice system and they're going to be repatriated to their home country, Mexico is one of them that's saying, look, we don't want them back. Right? And yesterday, PM Briceño also said, yeah, no bring there neither.
I agree. And I even saw a report, and it's interesting, I should have brought it up. There was some report that I saw online that said Mexico is actually thinking of deporting some U.S. persons who are in Mexico and have overstayed, because you wouldn't believe there's a lot of United States citizens who are actually trying to migrate to other parts of the world. And so they're saying, look, if we find them, we're deporting them too. And so that's been an all-around conversation that's taking place. We know that as the time approaches where the new president will be officially sworn in, it's going to be a lot more conversations just like that one. But that does it for What's Buzzing. If you have any thoughts on the conversations mentioned this morning, let us know in the comments section. And if you feel that we should be discussing, also let us know. Moving now into our weather update to find out what we can expect from the folks at the Met Service.
Good morning, Belize. Conditions are becoming less moist over our area. The 24-hour forecast: sunny skies with some cloudy spells today and partly cloudy to cloudy tonight. Shower activity will be isolated with the chance for a few more, mainly along central and southern coastal areas this afternoon, then mostly over the south tonight. The maximum temperatures for today will reach 79 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 81 inland, and 68 up in the hills. The low temperatures for tonight will be around 73 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 68 inland, and 61 up in the hills. The winds will be from northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and the sea conditions will be moderate. A high tide will occur this morning at 7:01, a low tide this morning at 11:23, another high tide this evening at 5:47, and another low tide early tomorrow morning at 1:41. The sun will rise this morning at 6:25 and will set this evening at 5:34. The moon will rise this afternoon at 1:37 and will set early tomorrow morning at 3:13. In the sargassum forecast, latest satellite imagery suggests that there is a slight increase in sargassum in the area. However, chances of sargassum affecting beaches and any potential impacts remains low. The outlook for Friday and Friday night is for mainly fair weather conditions. Showers, if any, will be isolated. For more details on our forecast, please visit our website at nms.gov.bz. With that, we end this morning's forecast from the Belize National Met Service.
Alrighty, there you have it, your weather update. Moving now into our show lineup, we have three wonderful conversations to look forward to this morning. In our first conversation, we'll meet some of the new faces of the National Students Union of Belize and the strides they plan to make this 2025.
Our second conversation is one that we attempted to have yesterday, but we will be having that proper today. It's time management in the midst of technology.
And in our final conversation, we'll be discussing common eco-friendly products you may have right in your house. We'll also be discussing if they're actually effective in helping the earth in the long run. But we got to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll be chatting with some of the faces of this new cohort of the National Student Union of Belize. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
job, I'm the coordinator of the Benke House of Culture niche. Before the Belize Bank online service, I had to travel to San Ignacio because we don't have a branch, a Belize Bank branch in our community. Now with the service, I can conduct my transactions at the office, at the comfort of my home, just anywhere in the world. It has made my life much easier. I would recommend the Belize Bank digital services to everyone and anyone. It gives you back your time, it's highly reliable, it's available 24/7, and it just makes your life easier.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
I'm connected. Yo.
I'm connected.
We're connected.
Create the perfect broadband bundle that fits your style with Smart Connect. With the Junior Bundle, get 50% off your national calls and up to 6 gigabytes of data at no extra cost. Get postpaid added on for an additional cost of only $25 with the Prime Bundle. Stay connected with unlimited smart-to-smart calls, plus 6,300 megabytes of data and free international minutes. For the family, get the Binge Watchers bundle with Netflix add-on for only $28.13 more. This bundle gives you 4 profiles with unlimited streaming on multiple devices. Visit a showroom near you to sign up and personalize your own bundle combination with Smart Connect. Smart, bringing people together.
Coming up, these chefs and mixologists produce their creative best for their biggest party yet. This steel band has been making a difference for over 40 years. An island filled with beauty, a vibrant culture, and an iconic natural attraction. Now, where can this be? It's all next on this station.
Welcome back, guys. This is our first conversation for the morning, and as we mentioned, we are having our chat this morning with the new National Student Union cohort here this 2025. Joining us is the outgoing president of the NSUB, Ashley Longford, and she's also joined by the incoming president, Thomas Surratt, and Tristan Rodriguez, the general secretary. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Morning,
thank you,
Good morning.
and welcome. So before we get into the new members and the new faces we'll be seeing in leadership, I want to begin with an overview and really the inception of the NSUB and how that began.
So it all started with 2 UB students, Gilmar Berganza and also Sadie Gomez. They're the founders of the union. It all started back in February 18, 2018, because at the time the 2 founders believed that they wanted a voice for students, that they feel like an overall voice for students, a union that really brings up about national levels of importance and about education, and they wanted that youths also have the voice for change as well. So knowing that they always say youths are the future now, so they wanted a union that has a voice for students, have the voice for education, have the voice for youth development and just tertiary education as a whole, and they wanted something that they believe that we have a voice and our voice needs to be heard. So that was the reason why the inception of NSUB was really created, because we wanted a voice for students as well.
Do you believe that over the years since then that you would have been able to achieve this objective both under their previous leadership of the union and under your tenure?
I truly believe that, because one, like I said, through our membership, like if you look at other unions, BNTU, PSU, I always say strength is in our numbers. So achieving through getting more people, getting more membership, getting more students a part of the union helps with, achieving goals, because they will let us know what's happening in education as well. They will tell us, Ash, this is happening here, like we're having issues about this. So through getting more membership, getting more people to be a part of the union really helps a lot. So achieving this and having this up for now about, I could say about 6 years or 5 years now, it's a truly remarkable achievement right now for us.
What brought on your interest in being a part of the union?
Okay, well, for me, I always believe that youth shouldn't be tokenism. I always believe that every time when I go to a meeting or something like that, and we're talking about policy and progress, and they bring in a youth, it's usually for be a placemat, to be honest, or like something that's symbolic seat. So I wanted that we created, that I and the union and sub created a voice for youths, and not to be a placeholder or something like that, being like, oh, we hear you, but we're not really listening to you, And I really wanted to create that. And also accountability. I always believe that we need to keep our leaders accountable, knowing what their action is, make their actions speak to their word that they were saying. So I wanted to be a leader for that, to advocate for accountability, advocate for transparency in our country.
It's interesting that you would say that. When I look at youth involvement in the national discourse, right, where it comes to issues that affect us all as Belizeans, on one hand, I believe firmly that young people need to be involved in decision making.
They do. It helps with democracy.
But on the other hand, sometimes it would appear as if though young people are generally disinterested and what have you. So then it poses the question, at what point do we meaningfully engage with each other as policy and decision makers on one end and young people with a voice on the other end?
I think, like I said, it has to happen on a national level, like this National Student Union believes, while Lab as well does that, Young Leaders Alliance. It needs to happen on a youth, like a youth organization would try to bring out more youth. So have that level, because there's sometimes you would say some youths are disinterested, but I don't really think so, just that sometimes they don't really want to talk or so, but they have ideas, they have their perspective of what they want for Belize, because essentially, I think all Belizeans just want that we have a better country, for us. So having those type of platforms that they could go to and be like, I want to be a part of NSUB because I'm a tertiary student, or I want to be a part of YLab, or I want to be a part of BYM. To have those level of platforms that they could go to, and they don't really need to be like the forefront of the conversation, but they could create ideas and perspectives about things. I think that's why, those youth organizations are here, those NPOs are here. So
I don't want to. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, I do agree that many youths do seem to be disinterested sort of in this policy making, but I think that's one of the issues that this sort of organization aims to tackle, right? Because I mean, even if a student does want to say something, where do they go, right? So that's not necessarily obvious where to move on, how to have a voice. So that's exactly what this union aims to do. It's to give these people a place to come and voice their opinion so that we can amplify their voice and have it heard at the national level.
Well, Ashley Longford spoke as the outgoing president after serving 4 years in the NSUB. This morning, we're also joined by the incoming president, and that's Thomas Surratt, representing NSUB. Good morning, Mr. Thomas. Talk to us about your interest in being a part of this type of union.
Well, I had first heard about the union a year ago when I started attending Galen University, but at that time I was getting adjusted to university life. However, last year, at the end of it, I had spoken again to one of the founders, Mr. Guillermo, and he had told me that the new elections are coming up. So I decided to join and run, and I ended up becoming nominated and voted in.
What's campaigning for something like this like, when you have to represent the entire tertiary level and the entire youth voice in Belize?
Well, it's a very big responsibility, of course, as many of these positions would be, but I do feel confident in my abilities because I have been a part of several conventions with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the Youth Parliament, as well as with CARICOM and the UN. So I do feel certain that I would have the experience and knowledge to be a part of this.
What is your vision for the NSUB during your term in office?
So essentially, I look at it as a wider vision for Belize. I believe that I would want to help create Belize into a more, so the education pillar of the Caribbean, because I do believe that education is one of the foundations for having a strong country, not just in economy, but in culture, in art, in every facet of society.
Isani sort of alluded to it, and that's where I'd like to take the conversation right now when it comes to young people and putting their voice forward, even when that comes with them being probably the only voice. I remember it was around late last year when I saw you, Ashley, join the BNTU and several other persons advocating for, I believe at that time it was the receiving of the land that would have been used for the for the hospital, and you were probably one among the only representation for NSUB at that time. How do you respond to the criticism that, just as Isani mentioned,
as a loner, you know, as being somebody? I think, you know, like I said, and I remember talking to Thomas last night, sometimes you will get so angry about it because it's like, I'm the only one here, but at the end of the day, I am the only one, yes, but I'm the voice of students. I have to still carry on this mantle for students at the end of the day, for youths as well. So like things of national importance, I believe that was something that, you know, NSUB need to carry on as, you know.
I'd hate to point out the irony here.
Yeah.
And I'm not here as a devil's advocate, but it's a matter of being able to be real about a situation. Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned strength in numbers.
Yes.
That would have been an ideal opportunity for the NSUB to galvanize around an issue that affects students. In this case, the acquisition of the land over what UB would have had set aside for the National Tertiary Hospital in Belmopan. That would have been an excellent opportunity for you guys to show your strength in numbers, but unfortunately, you were a loner.
Yeah, I was, but like I said, when I gather my data and I look at, you know, I ask students, you know, why they weren't out there and things like, some of them said, hey, they got, even not to say it in this way, but some of them got phone calls from government officials saying that they should not be out there, and you know, that's happened, political infringement, and you know, they said that even though we want to go out there, actually, but we're getting calls saying that we shouldn't, and some, you know, some teachers, some, like I said, government officials, big government officials saying that they shouldn't, like the student governments at that time. So that's the part that, you know, kind of weighs me down. It's like, oh, you know, no, we have that. So
there was suppression of some sort.
Yeah, suppression of that. Yeah, so it happens.
For me then, I wonder if this is an opportunity to reassess how we can, or how you guys could make this tenure, this time around, be something centered around educating our young people on the importance of good governance, the importance of fighting back against corruption or suppression or oppression in other cases. This is, and I hope it is, more than just, as you mentioned, Ashley, being a placeholder. We are looking at many unions in Belize, and there's only a few that we can really say are the heavy hitters when we think of those that will make a stand. We think of BNTU, we think of PSU, and in this case, there's an opportunity to have that youth voice be just as heavy as these long-standing unions. Thomas, the question then is posed to you. How do you ensure that these youth voices are not stifled when it's time to advocate and it's time to speak up on social issues that affect not only young people but the greater country?
Well, I think that needs to be essentially targeted towards open discussions, and to say that students, their responsibility is to go out there and let their voices be heard, and the government's responsibility is to provide that platform. Because if we don't have that platform, then students will not feel secure and comfortable in essentially expressing their thoughts. And that's one of the main issues we want to tackle as well, is say the fact that a lot of students aren't aware that the National Student Union even exists. So if we would get even more numbers, then that would certainly help, I'd say, in terms of advocacy and for just having open discussions about these kinds of issues.
Yeah.
I have a question, and you'll forgive my ignorance, right? There is the National Trade Union Congress of Belize that's widely regarded as the umbrella organization, right?
We're a part of that.
You're a part of the
We're
NTUCB.
a member of the NTUCB. Actually,
Okay.
that's up on the picture over
I was
here.
just about to ask. So
Yeah.
to add to that then, what is the degree or level of involvement in terms of you guys being able to sit around that table with the TUC and come up with either policies or positions as it affects union members and persons within the general labor movement?
I think you pose it to Thomas or
Either of you guys.
So really, we're like I said, an honorary member for them. So what we do is they would ask us about issues like importance, like for example, like you brought up the land acquisition that happened, the 6.9. They would ask us, how do students feel about this? You know, since that this was like a tertiary hospital that was supposed to go to UB, you know, on UB campus, and they asked us, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that's not going there? It's going somewhere else, you know, and I think that's where, you know, that's where NTUCB lies with us, is like, you know, how do you feel? Because this is something that's affecting students, that we should be the main stakeholders in getting this hospital, you know, because according to what the government said is that, oh, this hospital is mainly for UB students to practice medicine, to practice their doctoral studies, you know, and then it's not going there, you know, that's where, you know, that's the alarm factor. And that's where, like I said, NTUCB was very angry about the situation. Other unions, you know, were very angry, and essentially me was very angry about it. So, you know, them knowing what our perspective is, what our, you know, what we want for meaningful change for that.
I want to get a little bit more personal in terms of your own educational journey that you're on. We've spoken to Ashley and Thomas a bit more than Tristan. So let's get you in the conversation right now and talk about your own educational pursuits and how that has merged with now your advocacy in being a part of NSUB.
Right, so currently I'm at St. John's Junior College. This is my second and last year, after which I do plan to go to Jamaica to continue pursuing my law career at UWI. And I think that in itself is a great opportunity to continue trying to increase inter-Caribbean collaboration amongst these student unions, right? Because as it happens to be, we do have the Commonwealth Student Association, of which, you know, all the different Caribbean student unions are a part of, but it's really only Belize and Jamaica that are active in that organization. And it's easy to look at that, you know, it's bad, right? All these countries aren't. But we also need to give credit to Belize and Jamaica for leading this field in innovation. It's not just the student unions. Belize and Jamaica also lead in terms of our legal systems, right? So we're very much trailblazers and leaders in the Caribbean, and I do hope to see more Caribbean involvement, but I also do hope to continue to see Belize and Jamaica leading. So hopefully me moving to Jamaica soon, I'm able to increase our collaboration with maybe their student union, have some collaboration with this student union, and because it's, you know, about bringing the entire Caribbean up, not just us.
Yeah. Can we expect any future activities that will see you guys pushing yourself forward?
Yes, sir. I would be certain that we'll all put in our effort to, you know, make this union bigger. Like Thomas said, we do want to raise awareness of the union. That's our sort of our first goal. There's strength in numbers, and the more members that we can have, the stronger we are, the more each voice is amplified.
What's the size of the membership right now?
So the size is about 150 members at the most right now.
Right. So
from the last count, but the thing is, you know, with National Student Union Belize, you have to understand there are students that graduate, you know, some students that, you know, dropped out, you know, so sometimes it's an up and down, like I always say. Yeah, it's a fluid membership, so it's not like, you know, you're still stagnant with this amount, because it could go down and it could really go up as well, determining on, you know, the semester, like in June, it going down back because people are graduating. Then it could go up back in August, September, because people are now coming
on board.
Yeah, coming on board now.
I would want to think, however, that when you gentlemen were campaigning for your respective positions, that you came in on a platform that says this is what you will do during the period of time that you're in office. So what is your mandate now that you have taken up your respective positions?
Well, right now, essentially my mandate, I'd say, is to, as we've been saying, increase the number of students who are members of the National Student Union, and for us to essentially perhaps have more regular meetings and more regular outspoken conversations about issues when they come up over at least my 2-year tenure, as well as Tristan's. Essentially, we just want to see youths more active, really. That's the end all.
Coming into this, was there any one particular issue that you found resounding among students like yourselves?
I think it's really a mix. You know, when you had COVID, you had students saying that they weren't really getting as much attention. We still see a couple discrepancies there in our education system, but we see some improvements there too, because now we have the option for online learning, which I myself am doing through hybrid at Galen. So I would say that perhaps the main issues would really just have to be with students not really getting say, oh, this was one that Ashley was recently talking about, specifically that we're having conversations with the Government of Education, Ministry of Education, sorry, to increase the accreditation of schools in the country, because right now it's not really as up to par as it should be, and this would of course help students be able to access those more high-earning careers.
Mm-hmm. Anything from you guys? Well, I mean, we know that Ashley is outgoing, but I imagine your work still continues.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like I really, since I'm outgoing, but I still want to collaborate more on on other youth platforms as well. Collaborate more on, being more a voice for youths, knowing that I have this, knowledge and experience from what I did. Creating a better voice for youths. Advocating still yet for accountability and transparency and advocating for a youth voice, youth in decision making, because it helps democracy, honestly.
This year is an interesting one because it's also election year. What's the conversation on the ground with tertiary level students, young people in general that have the ability to vote? Are we voting because family members have been this color or this party all our lives? Or are we making critical steps to learn the faces that that we will have to mark that ballot for?
I think something that the student union needs to really broadcast out there is that most of the population of the country is young people. We are the voices, we have the knowledge, we have the potential right there. So I think that they really need to tell students, we need to tell students then that, hey, you need to make these critical decisions, you need to ensure that you are staying up to date with your news, making sure you're aware of all the current issues, right? And something that we also wanted to hope that the government would tackle is the fact that university in the tertiary level is skewed towards being more females to males. We have less males in tertiary level education. I believe it's around 7 to 30 or 6 to 40, around there. So we would want to see more males in university. That's something that it's a pressing issue. We hope that whichever party, whoever it is that's in the new government, we really hope they tackle that issue as well.
How about over at SJC-JC? How are we feeling about an election looming?
Well, because like Thomas said as well, we do hope to overall just increase the amount of awareness that these students have on the political environment in Belize, right? Because I think more than anything, a lot of people simply aren't that updated with what's currently going on and who they want to vote for, and it ends up being just like you said, who their family members voted for or what color they side with, instead of them actually looking at policies, right? That's what we're all about. So certainly an aim of the student union, and I will try to implement this in St. John's, will be to make these people aware of all the policy changes occurring within our government. And I do plan to broadcast that message as widely as I can throughout St. John's. And while I'm on the topic of St. John's, one more thing I want to mention is that we do want to increase the amount of schools that are an official part of the student union. So St. John's, from my end, I'll certainly do my best to get them involved. And we also want to get Galen involved eventually, different tertiary level schools, as to just overall make the student union more powerful.
Keeping on the topic of the national vote that's upcoming and where young people fit into this picture, how difficult is it to get the attention of young men and women where something as important as this is concerned versus everything else that's taking place in their academic and their personal lives? See, with us as adults, perhaps we only have work and family life, right? Which makes it a bit easier for us to say, okay, I'll vote for this person or this party, or I'll educate myself on what the process actually means, versus you guys who have so much more going on. How difficult is that?
Well, yeah, I do think a lot of Belizeans have a lot of pressing issues, I guess you could say, right? And I think what we need to do for that is just really stress how important it is that attention be paid to these political environments, right? Because ultimately, everything you just mentioned, right? The economy, the education system, all that revolves within the political system. So it's something that we really need to drill into everyone's head that, you know, we should know about this. We should be updated about this because your right to vote, I mean, it's one of your most essential rights. You could say something like that, right? It's what keeps this country running, and an educated society is one that votes properly, and hopefully with that we could have overall a country that thrives more.
It shouldn't be viewed as something on the sidelines. It should be viewed as something that impacts, as Tristan said, everything in our lives. So it needs to be stressed.
And some of the very same issues that you guys are advocating for will be determined by the vote that you make.
That's right.
This has been a great conversation. As we wrap up, I'll ask if you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers, any upcoming activities that we can anticipate, or even ways that students that might be tuning in can reach out to you guys if they have an interest in being a part of NSUB.
Well, I'd like to just say that students, if you're all listening, please follow us on Instagram. Please reach out and check out our website as well. We want to increase our membership, and we'll be having more news shortly. So please tune in and listen to the National Student Union of Belize.
And they could also apply using the, they could go at the web, type in on Google, like any web browser, National Student Union Belize. They have there is a website that we have, and we have a button that they could apply, and then they fill out the form to be a member. And you just need to be, honestly, a tertiary level student. And it's from Belize or from any parts of the world. It could be. It's just simple.
We want to say that we're thankful for this sort of opportunity because, like we said, one of our main goals is to increase awareness. So this certainly is a step towards that. So thank you guys very much.
Well, we hope to have you guys back very soon, getting your take on some of the national issues taking place in Belize. Very important voice we just heard here this morning. We're going to take a quick break, though, but when we come back, it's all into time management in the midst of technology. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Take control with My Social Security, your secure online account to manage all your Social Security information. To create a My Social Security account, you must be 14 years or older and have a valid email address. Visit the My Social Security self-service portal at ssbportal.org.bz. Click on Create Account. Enter your date of birth and phone number. Next, verify your email address to continue. To verify, simply enter your email address and click the Send Verification button. Enter the verification code sent to your email inbox to proceed. Next, create a password that meets the requirements. Enter the name and select the reason for your account. Then click Create. Your My Social Security account was successfully created. Your information security is our priority. If you have a Social Security number, click Link My SSN to link your Social Security number to your account and activate using the steps in your confirmation email. If you do not have a Social Security number, click Register with SSB. You are now ready to truly experience Social Security at your fingertips.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connection. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
It's clearly documented that we have been having, as a planet, an increase in incidence of cancers. And remember, cancer is a genetic disease.
When you now look at somebody's DNA or their genetics, it can tell you everything about a person. So what we use next generation sequencing to do in particular is to look at hereditary cases of diseases.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
And welcome back. For our second segment this morning, we have been joined via Zoom by Minerva Pinello. She is the Managing Director of Right Insights, and she's here with us this morning to talk about time management in the midst of technology. This promises to be an interesting conversation. Good morning, Minerva.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning, Isani. Good morning, Sabrina. Happy New Year.
How are you doing? Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, and excited to kick off 2025, as I'm sure everyone is.
All right, so let's jump into it. We're talking about being able to manage our time in the age of technology, and I'm thinking you have all of these devices. Devices can be distracting. How do we begin? Where do we begin from, and why is this important?
Thank you. And to your point, Isani, indeed, I think technology is a powerful tool. It has really evolved the way we work, the way we communicate with each other, even on personal levels. And so I think one of the caveats is that while it's a powerful tool, it can also be, a very big distractor. And so trying to understand what works for us, and I'm saying what works for us both in our professional aspect as well as our personal aspects, are important. And so I think the three tips that I'd like to start with are really that we have to, one, prioritize our tasks. I know that it's very difficult at times to set down our phones, to move away from our machines, whether they're laptops or desktops, even our tablets. And so I think one of the important points is to always have my to-do list, because I will be constantly bombarded. I already expect what my day looks like the minute I wake up, the many messages I will have on different platforms. For some of us, a to-do list might be on an agenda, maybe more traditionally, a planner, or we now have tools online so we can have any of the digital calendars we may choose to use. I, for example, I'm very fond of online calendars for meetings because it allows me to prompt reminders maybe 30 minutes in advance, not just for myself, but for the person I would be meeting with. Also, too, though, for those of us who are visual, perhaps a whiteboard, something where we can really visualize and helps us to know that while there are 100 tasks ahead of us for any given period, we definitely need to spend that level of effort on the most important tasks for that day, for that period. And so I think when you think about balancing, it's about time and energy that you want to invest. So that's really the first point. I think a second point is that we have to schedule email time. For example, logging on to one email versus 5 of our emails, because sometimes we have multiple emails for work or for businesses, for example, can be a distractor. And so I would suggest checking in on emails maybe after every 75, 90 minutes, depending on the urgency of your tasks, because it helps you to really stay focused on what you need to get done. If there are chimes or notifications coming in and you think those are working against you, it's important to manage those maybe by disabling them or identifying a way to make the most important emails stand out. And then I think thirdly, we want to make sure we can use collaborative spaces as much as possible in this era. There are many times, and let me know if you can relate, especially those of us in the audience, when you walk away from a meeting thinking, this could have been an email.
For sure.
And so,
Don't remind me, Minerva.
we've been there, it's a common pain. And so I think using collaborative workspaces where now platforms like Google, Microsoft Teams, or any other will help us to work on a file together, perhaps brainstorm together, work on something that would almost have us as if we were in one room discussing and making progress. Because otherwise, we're going to have to leave that meeting and still go back to the task on hand. So the third point is use collaborative spaces, but always have clear objectives. What is it that we're going to use this for? What is it that we intend to have by a set period? And I want to stress the set period because it's very easy as well to have collaborative workspaces where there's no sense of urgency or deadline. And so you don't feel like the progress is being made. I'll just pause here for any questions or interventions you may have.
Right, so what I find interesting is that perhaps there are two schools of thought. One that suggests for the older generation that they may not necessarily look to technology as something that could help them to organize their time and allow them to make better decisions where productivity is concerned. We don't use to a physical calendar and a planner and write down everything. Then on the other hand, you have the younger generation that, does the whole Google Calendar thing and makes sure that there are certain alarms.
And that's what I was going to point out, Isani. The irony of the conversation is that we're saying that the use of technology could be a distraction. But for many of us, we look at technology as a way to manage time. When you think of prior to laptops, you had to do all your work in the office or at home. Now you can take work on the road. When you look at many other developments in technology, artificial intelligence, how quick and easy you can run through an activity. Now we are looking at ways that has become a distraction, or we have essentially even found other ways outside of technology to still put off our assignments. What do you make of that, as Isani pointed out, the difference in generation and how they use technology to manage their time?
Thank you for bringing that point, because I think we're now seeing entrance of, different generations at workspaces. I know, for example, most recently the Chamber had a session at the end of 2024 to try and look at how best different generations at the workplace will be able to interact. And I think it boils down to, one, the leadership style within an organization, and also that there will be constant discussion on a shared work ethics or approach. So while some will find it easier to, or will gravitate to the older styles, they might have to be more cognizant of the need for integration of technology. Yet those of us who might be more savvy on the end on technology might have to remember that we also have to cater for different styles. It's almost like being in a classroom where we know we have different learners, different styles. And so similarly, when we are at the workplace or when we are interacting with our clients or customers, it has to boil down to maybe sort of a middle or a medium, where we know that we can still work on, one, the tasks that are priority, regardless of the platforms, the tools, whether digitally or not, and also how we're going to optimize the time we have, because otherwise we have so many more tasks that would be following. And, we can't just be bogged down or maybe not making the best use of that time that we have with the client, with the customer, with our employee, with our colleague. So I think it's about discussing openly one of the styles that will be used within organizations, but also being very open-minded and being mindful of the different styles around us now, because I think with technology, we now have opened so much possibility to collaborative tools. For those of us, and I'm saying us because I was in that category where AI was very new, perhaps it means sitting through classes, courses, even just some tutorials or podcasts to learn more about AI. and really understand what that means for those who will be using it, who will be integrating it into the work, and how best we can work with those technologies.
I think at its fundamental, if we're talking AI, we had Alexa, we have OK Google, we have all of these other AI assistants that if you want to organize your day, at the very least you could say, hey Google, give me an alert at 10:30 for a meeting that I have with my mom or whatsoever. And it begins from there. But that's, to me, at the most basic level, right? But we could employ AI tools to really get us to get up and go and get things done in terms of organizing and managing our time. It's just that perhaps many of us are still a bit apprehensive towards using these tools. As you've mentioned, you yourself, Minerva, were perhaps a bit, kind of skeptical at first. How did you cross that hurdle?
So I have always been someone who thinks I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
And of course, there were a lot of AI courses being offered for business owners. I manage a consulting firm, and so there are multiple tasks every day, several projects in the pipeline. And so I thought, let me sit and understand where I can really draw from AI. First, I learned ChatGPT. A lot of the younger folks around me were talking about, the power of research and what these tools do. I've also learned a lot about chatbots, for example. So if I cannot respond to a client or a customer, I know that there are generated AI tools that I can integrate. And so I think for me personally, it was trying to learn what does AI offer in the different roles that I will serve as a consultant, as a coworker, as a supervisor, and so integrating some of those. But I think it means constantly being open-minded and listening, trying to find the knowledge that we need, and then making that decision of how and where we're going to integrate that into our lives.
I want to take a look really quickly back at the list that you provided, the 3 steps to improving our time management skills. The first point that you mentioned was?
To prioritize our tasks. I think we're going to always be bombarded. We have to decide what are our 5 most important or 10 most important for this week, for example.
And that raises such an interesting point, because it was about a year or so ago that I saw this video presentation from a psychologist saying sometimes we get so overwhelmed with everything that's taking place around us. We think that we have so many things we have to deliver throughout the day, and it feels like a swarm of bees around our head. Yeah. But when you write it down on paper, or if you type it out and make a list, you might realize it's only like 5 bees. And that really allows us to arrange our thoughts and to get more focused on your activities. How important is list making?
I think for those of us who are visual, it is very important. Some of us need to see those lists. We need to see the tasks, but along with the tasks, we need to know what those sub-tasks are. What are the little actions that will support? So think of it in the analogy of a house. We have a roof, that's our objective. But what will support that? So the little pillars, those are our subtasks. How are we going to manage them? Now, I also want to point out that some of us are more linear in the way we work, and we might have to spend a chunk of our day on one task before we can move on to the other. Some of us, though, can work on multiple tasks, and we can assign less time to more tasks in one day. And that's why it's important to find our styles. But prioritizing means I might have to write it down. I might have to have it on my phone. Some people carry it on their phones. I might have to use an app, perhaps that has alarms, but it will guide me and it will continue to help me to look at the most important.
It is interesting because while we're talking about how we approach a task and where we prioritize the important elements of getting certain things done versus the other parts of the task, I liken it to eating an elephant, right? We always say, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time, right? But those bites have to be critical or important to how you're going to go about consuming the entirety of in this case, the task.
For sure.
Right? So some people could start from the head and go all the way to the tail in a manner of speaking, as Minerva alluded to, that's being linear. Some people will take strategic bites, and before you know it, everything comes together and you're left with only the frame, right, Minerva?
Yes, exactly. And this is where, if you are linear and Sabrina isn't, how are we going to work together but still meet that ultimate goal? And I think these are where the discussions come in our organizations, in our teams, in our small spaces, whether it's for work, for community aspects, whether in church, development, etc. So I think that's important. Also, though, we have to be very cognizant of how to be able to silence technology. And I want to use that in a positive sense of the word, because I think sometimes, we think of how do we actually get some quiet time, some reflection time to be able to think through everything that we're being asked to do.
That's very true.
And so sometimes it means disabling certain aspects or certain features. It doesn't mean we are eliminating it. We're just temporarily putting it on pause. I belong to multiple boards serving within my community. And I know my board members always say, "You're so good at disconnecting." Well, if I need to get work done, I must disconnect from the constant chat groups. For me, I definitely mute chat groups. My groups know that if there's something they need to highlight for Minerva, they're going to tag me and I will reappear. I sometimes disable constant notifications like chimes of my emails on my phone. If you're connecting those to your smartwatches, for example, they may become distractors. There are a lot of privacy settings that you can also use for your social media handles, because those will minimize the amount of notifications you would be receiving, or even newer requests that you might not have to urgently address. Also for me, I know some phones have features where you have a do not disturb after a certain hour. I am very mindful of time with family and at home. And so there are some numbers, obviously, that are selected as those that can go through the do not disturb feature. But otherwise, everything else would seem to be more work related and can be done during those more formal business hours. I am also, this is perhaps more old school, Isani, I am still very good at putting away my vacation notifications.
Yeah.
I believe that it's important to set boundaries. And so, they will know once Minerva is at work, she will be answering you within X number of hours. But if she's away for vacation, or because our work our work allows us to go to many communities, we will be on the road. So it's field work. I am not going to be in the same capacity to respond to an email that requires more quiet time. And so I am very fond of my email notifications. So while we are using technology, we're also trying to make sure we can manage it. And that may mean disabling certain features because of the priority at hand.
I think while this is interesting, perhaps what we're leaving out, and it may be critical, is self-control. Because while we're talking about disabling certain features and what have you, that has to be a conscious decision that comes from within.
Yeah.
When you are so in tune to what's taking place in the wider world around you, it's difficult for you to say, you know what, I'm going to disconnect and isolate and focus solely on getting this task done. More often than not, but my mom might call me, or I need to know what happened on Facebook. And the moment that chime comes in, it completely takes away our attention from what we need to get done.
And then all of a sudden you're doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Especially at the end of the night, you might say, let me just take a little 15 minutes scrolling time before I go
there.
And before you know it, it's 45 minutes to 60 minutes and you have gone past your bedtime.
Yeah.
And so, also to that point, I think it's important to remember an older rule that we had, the 8-8-8 rule. And I know that our lives really aren't compartmentalized by 8 hours. But if you can attempt, and I'm saying attempt because I myself am still not at the 8-hour sleep, for example. But I do know that I try to ascribe a significant portion of the time I need of 8 hours for rest, whether that's maybe 6 hours sleep and 2 hours of doing something that's helping me to wind down. Obviously, 8 hours. I exceed 8 hours for work. There are days I've been working 18 hours in the past, maybe 12 hours, trying to minimize that. But also, too, I take breaks because I have, the opportunity to work flexibly or remotely. But also, not to forget the self care and trying to ascribe some time for relaxation, for hobbies, for something that will help me to re energize. Think about how often you've been in front of your computer, you feel like, there's no more that you can write, think. You take a 10, 15-minute break, whatever that means, walking to another level of the building. Those of us who work home might mean going to the garden, just doing something that's moving us away from the task at hand and helping us to re-energize. So as much as we can, we have to think about those aspects. We need rest so that we can have the energy every day to perform work, but we also need some time to relax, rewind, to unwind, or to re-energize, and that may mean just taking breaks. So what allows us to recover, sleep, what allows us to enjoy what we do or what we're passionate about, that's the time for work, and what really allows us to find those moments to feel good, to go back with an aha moment. We go back to our computers, we can go back to our work, our desks, our stations, and we feel like we're ready to continue. So I like that point about the self-control too, because I'm the one who decides to go scrolling. So how much, can I ascribe on that given day to be scrolling? And how much time will I also ascribe for any other tasks that will help me to be as relaxed and energized?
I love where the conversation went this morning. As we wrap up this, though, although we might have known all of the information that we discussed, but really just needed to hound the point in. When we think of Right Insights, the organization that you are the managing director for, Ms. Pinello, is this something that we can get from Right Insights, perhaps interventions with work organizations where time management is concerned, or even discussions with other persons who might be tuning in and knowing that they do struggle with this issue?
Certainly. Thank you so much for asking. We are on social media handles, of course, Right Insights. We also have a web page. We have worked primarily with strengthening institutions, and that does mean helping with soft skills. It means building capacity, collecting data, trying to understand how to best work for optimizing teams. So, I'll welcome any inquiries, any kind of suggestions on collaborating as well. And we're just happy to share also the experiences we've had in our own evolution with technology and working over the past 2.5 decades, and seeing how that world of work has transitioned.
Certainly. So Right Insights on social media, all the social media platforms. Do you guys have a number or an email that we can contact you by?
Sure. Our email is admin@rightinsights.bz. So that admin for administration at rightinsights.bz. And our number is 610-3922. 610-3922.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Minerva. This has been a wonderful conversation. I think you have honed the point of working smarter and not harder. This 2025, we want to work and prioritize time management, but still ensure that we take some time for ourselves to rest and recharge.
Thank you. All the best in 2025 and very happy to share. Have a great day ahead.
You too.
All right, we take another quick break, but when we come back, the conversation switches into eco-friendly finds that you might have in your house. And are they really helping the earth? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
is Hermine Vega. El Patio Grill has been using Belize Bank for over 25 years. We only use Belize Bank at our restaurant. That's why we were able to win this trip to Europe. I had never been to Europe. We found out it was Madrid and we were excited and we went to this football match. The teams reached before the game and everybody was just outside, you know. You can't explain, the noise just roared like 3 blocks down the street, but when you got in there and you saw 70,000 people in there, that was amazing. I couldn't believe it was happening. I had to pinch myself to make sure it was real, you know, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, I'd say. My lucky plus one was my son. He's 18 years old, so he was really excited and he enjoyed it as well. He said it's his best trip ever, so it's a priceless experience that we got. Belize Bank has always been there for me. Whatever transactions or whatever I need to do, they're always there for me. I would recommend everybody to use Belize Bank. This is the oldest bank in our country and they continue to do their best.
There's a new law in Belize that allows the law enforcement authorities to investigate and ask the courts to forfeit criminal property that may be derived from offenses such as corruption, drug trafficking, and fraud. It's called the Civil Asset Recovery and Unexplained Wealth Act. If all of a sudden you see somebody with all this money, cars, property, living the life, but they don't have a job or a business or any obvious sort of income, that's gonna raise some huge red flags. So you may be wondering, could this potentially affect you? What if someone else is supporting you? No problem, that can be easily proven. What if you inherited the money? No problem, that's not hard to prove either. What if you operate a mostly cash-based business? Also no problem, just keep proper receipts and you're good. The new law does not exist to unreasonably target anyone. The FIU won't just go after random people for no reason. There are certain legal conditions, for example. The authorities have to prove the connection to the property and an offense. One of the biggest safeguards is that the process still has to go through the courts. So there's nothing to fear about the new law. Let's take the money out of crime. This message was brought to you by the Financial Intelligence Unit and the U.S. Embassy, Belmopan.
Coming up, these chefs and mixologists produce their creative best for their biggest party yet. This steel band has been making a difference for over 40 years. An island filled with beauty, a vibrant culture, and an iconic natural attraction. Now, where can this be? It's all next on this station.
When we think of eco-friendly items in your household, there are many things that come to mind. Primarily, the first thing that crossed my mind was switching plastics to other forms of materials to essentially eradicate plastics from the environment. For me, that involves switching to bamboo straws, switching to metal straws, and really avoiding using plastic bags altogether. But this is for a greater good, as we mentioned. It's a way to preserve the environment, to help the environment from having these materials that don't essentially waste away. They're not biodegradable. And so this morning, or in this final conversation, we're going to be looking at some of those eco-friendly items that you might have in your household, or perhaps you could consider to place in your household to help the environment.
So, in my other profession, as a consultant, I've done work where single-use plastics and styrofoams are concerned. And prior to that, admittedly, I wasn't really mindful of how single-use plastics and styrofoam impact the environment. And so that process was educational for me in terms of understanding where we are as a Belizean society primarily. And the fact that if I thought that I was alone, I realized through survey and research and interacting with various stakeholders that the average Belizean did not either know or care. And this was against the backdrop of the enactment of the single-use and plastics single-use plastics and styrofoam law. If you recall, there was this entire push where we were trying to do away with single-use plastics and styrofoams. And before we get into the conversation proper, I was just thinking to myself, I said, it almost felt like a doomsday experience when we were saying, okay, come this particular day or date, we won't be seeing
styrofoam
plastic
plates.
bags or styrofoam plates and what have you.
What happens when you go to a restaurant and get takeout?
And even then, right, you alluded to bamboo straws and stainless steel straws and what have you to replace straws, the plastic ones, right? So there was this push where everybody wanted to be on the right side of this particular piece of legislation. But now I feel like we've fallen back to where I go to the Chinese grocery store or any grocery store for that matter, and I'm getting a thank you for shopping bag again, which I know is plastic as opposed to any other alternative, right? And so I just wanted to put that there because so often we rally behind something and then the enforcement part of it or our own personal responsibilities, we tend to slack off on it, right?
I love that you pointed that out, Tisani, because I think where that conversation can lead to is what are ways that there has been penalties to enforce the eradicating of single-use plastics in its entirety. As you mentioned, when this legislation came about, there was a lot of a buzz around it, both on the consumers, as in customers purchasing items and getting these foam plates or these plastics in general, and then on the business side of what the options would look like. Would it be more costly? Would it be difficult to get into the country? What would be the support from the government as well?
So there were several considerations, and rightly so. I think one of them, the primary consideration on the part of business owners was affordability and feasibility, right? Where do I turn as a grocer to be able to purchase wholesale bags that are either reusable or bags that are made from an alternative material? So that was one of the considerations. The other, from the point of view of the consumer, is okay, now when I go to the store, will I be charged extra for the plastic bag that contains my groceries?
Which takes place in certain parts of the world. You pay like 10 cents for a plastic bag.
Exactly. So it serves in a sense as a deterrent that says, okay, I'll take my own bag to the store, and that way I could just put my canned goods and whatever in the bag, and then I don't have to worry about that. But that speaks to an individual consciousness, right? Like for me, if I go to the store that's nearest to my home, I don't worry about taking a bag, one. Two, I don't request a bag either. I just go, pick up the items that I need, but it's instinctive for the shopkeeper to start bagging things up or ask you if you want a bag. You have to tell yourself, okay, you know what? Nah, I could do without it. I could either just use my knapsack, if that's the case, and just put the items in my knapsack, and go along. But I'm saying all of that to say this. Now, coming back to the conversation that we're having, in the household, you have items that more often than not you're going to be using repeatedly. So why would I then go to a store and purchase a pack of plastic forks when I know that if I buy a stainless steel set, you know, I would be using that to perpetuity basically.
Yes.
Right? But these are conscious decisions that you have to make. Same thing for cups and plates and so on and so forth.
Well, let's take a look at a list of some of the items that could potentially be in your household, or you could even consider using in your households as a means of being more eco-friendly. At the top of the list, which we kind of spoke of when we associate with straws, was the bamboo straws. But did you know that there were also bamboo toothbrushes versus plastic toothbrushes that I am pretty sure are more prominent in our households?
Here's the thing, Sabrina. I've only encountered a bamboo toothbrush in an upscale hotel.
Oh, that's you know what? You raise an excellent point though, because there are some hotels even that have incorporated more eco-friendly options in their actual staying. That's an excellent point. Now there's cloth diapers versus disposable diapers. Now this one I think is going to be more controversial because I have an older brother who's in his 30s and I was told that he grew up with cloth diapers. I don't think that's as common as it was back then.
But it's a practice that as parents we probably ought to return to, right? Again, we're being environmentally conscious, and the decision making starts with the individual. If you're a young mom and you could recall being a child growing up and they were using cloth diapers on you, then you could put aside the Bebin, or you could put aside the Pampers, or you could put aside whatever other brand that you're using and simply return to that.
And
it only means though that you have to wash more often, because with the disposables, you just put that in the garbage and you're done away with, right?
But you know what's another point that could be considered is the savings that you'd get on something like a cloth diaper, where, I mean, talk to us parents that have babies that you have to frequently buy diapers. How many diapers are you running through on a weekly basis? Those Huggies, they have to purchase them by the box, right?
And they're costly.
I
would
We're
want to
talking
think
brands. Which brand of cloth you need?
I would want to think that as a child growing up, as a baby, back in the 80s somewhere, that my mom's bill is very, very minimal when it comes to what we were using as disposable, well, diapers, sorry.
Yeah.
There weren't as many, disposables back then as they are now. But with inflation, you may want to consider going the way of the cloth as opposed to the disposable. I don't know.
Hey, and I'll even play devil's advocate for us females, because I've also seen that there are cloth sanitary products that have also been placed on the scene, which I'm pretty sure has been around many, many decades prior to the ones that has been high priced in also certain parts of the world as well. But I have to make that plug. We do know that there has been a tax-free inclusion in Belize where sanitary products for females are concerned. But stainless steel and glass straws versus plastic straws, this has been one that I think a lot of people here in Belize has came on to appreciate more. When we think of plastic straws, first of all, there are plastic straws that can break. I know that there are some also, I don't know if it's bamboo, but they're a lot thinner than the thicker bamboo straws that you would get. I imagine it's not bamboo, but some of those are a little bit more fragile, and so I would recommend getting stainless steel straws or glass straws. You can have those forever, honestly.
Before we move on to the next one, though, here's the thing, and perhaps it's behavioral more than anything else in terms of being able to condition oneself to have on them a reusable straw. Because then when you go to work or you go places, I'll use a woman as an example, right? So you have your purse or your bag or what have you. Would you consider putting in a stainless steel straw if you say, okay, I'll probably go and purchase fast food at some point, including a soft drink or a juice of some sort? Would you consider that?
I would consider that. And in fact, there has been some point that I've done that, but I probably forgot to put it back in. Fortunately for us here at work, though, we do have reusable straws in our kitchenette area. And so I haven't really found the need to use something more single use in the office. But definitely, I think it's a great reminder that Isani mentioned. If you are prone to use more straws and you want to go to a restaurant or to a cafe, maybe take your own single-use straws as well. Now, this one I'm not too familiar with when we say beeswax wraps versus plastic wraps. Would
the plastic wrap is the saran wrap.
Yes.
Right?
And the beeswax one would be?
Like the wax paper, what we call
the wax paper. Okay, all right. Well, we use that. All right. The only thing with the saran,
that's a
it doesn't
no-brainer.
stick.
Yeah. The wax paper, I think, is the ideal of the two. The saran wrap perhaps is the most available, like you could just go anywhere and order or and have that.
Yeah.
And I don't think how much thought is put into it at home, right? So for instance, we have a piece of cake that we have left over, or we have any other food item, our first thought is, okay, saran wrap and put it in the fridge or what have you.
For your fruits.
And when you're done with it, you just toss it in the garbage. That goes back into the environment, right?
Yeah. I've even seen people use saran wrap for weight loss, apparently, to wrap around their stomachs. But apparently, the wax wraps are different from the ones that you were mentioning,
paper?
the wax paper. So that's I'm not sure, I've never seen anything like that here in Belize then.
Yeah, this is a bit foreign to me. Forgive me.
But this one, I definitely want us to spend a bit more time on, because we're talking compostable trash bags versus plastic trash bags. Now, this goes back to our conversation, Isani, that we were having earlier, where when you purchase your items at the grocery store, you get plastic bags. I'll tell you this, a lot of people might argue and say, well, you know, I get my plastic bags from the grocery store, so I don't have to buy trash bags. And so they use that for their trash bags instead.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I'm speaking from the point of view of my household, right? Nothing irks me more than an accumulation of grocery bags. You know why? Because that attracts roaches and rodents, if you think about that, right? And so there's a reason why we purchase garbage bags, separate from hoarding plastic bags that you get everywhere else. And I think when people begin to think, okay, well, I could use the plastic bag for garbage, you're not generating as much garbage in a relatively small household. You're not generating as much garbage to keep up with the amount of bags that you're collecting every time you go to the shop.
So then you have a whole big bag with a bunch of little bags in it. Or for some, a drawer designated for plastic bags. And that's an excellent
they're
point.
kind of, you know, vermin live in a thing.
Yeah. But for those wondering, there are indeed compostable trash bags as opposed to the plastic bags that you would get at the grocery store, or even the purchasing of those trash bags that we know to recognize. Now, recycled paper towels versus paper towels from virgin paper.
Paper towels from virgin paper means there are more trees being cut down to manufacture that. So I would go with recycled paper towels wherever they're available, because that's the other thing too, right?
Yes. And again, though, it goes back to the availability of these items and the cost that would be associated with it. I just want to go really quickly back to the compostable plastic bags and just the conversation around plastic bags in general, because that was where the conversation began, along with styrofoam items as well, to be eradicated from the stores and your grocers. When I think of a business that has been trying to bring back this conversation and doing its own part, I think of A&R, that recently, if you shop at A&R this morning or today, you would have to purchase their reusable bags. They no longer give you plastic bags. You can't even purchase plastic bags with them anymore. And so that has been a business, and I have to say kudos to them, who even if they only recently started it last year, or if this has been something that has been ongoing since this legislation, they are making that effort to remove single-use plastics. Next is cotton or linen shopping bags versus plastic shopping bags that we just spoke about. There are many stores that you can purchase these reusable shopping bags. I know we all have them. A lot of people, they call it the chetomal bag. Have you ever heard of that?
Not necessarily chetomal bag, but growing up we call it the market bag.
Or the market bag, right? Yes.
That's the multicolored one.
Yes.
That's made of plastic as well.
Yes.
But it's a different kind of plastic. Yeah.
And
it's not single use, it's reusable. You use that to put your groceries and stuff in there.
It also takes me to a story that we highlighted late last year. Well, we did a rerun on it late last year, but earlier last year, of this lady in Barlboom who has been making reusable bags out of the single-use plastic bags. And she kind of used that up as an opportunity to say her prayers in every stitch. And so, while, you know, Isani made an excellent point that the same market bags, or the chetomal bags, as we also call them, are still plastic, it's a way that you can still reuse it. And so even if it's something that you got from the store, you have an accumulation of all these plastic bags that you thought could have been trash bags, but it's now all piled up, there are ways that you can make it into actual reusable bags as well. That's an interesting one. Wooden or metal cutlery versus plastic cutlery?
Metal cutlery for me.
Same. I find that wooden cutlery, after a while, if it doesn't dry properly after washing it, it rots, or it can also be exposed to mold.
Yeah,
so take that into consideration as well. Plant-based cleaning products versus chemical-based household cleaners. Now this
is a
one's
tough one.
funny.
This is a tough one.
Because when you're cleaning your bathroom, you're practically dying from the accumulation of all the Clorox and everything together. This is a tough one.
I'll be honest with you here. I like my Pledge. I like my Windex.
Your Clorox.
Your Clorox. Yeah. When I'm cleaning with that, I feel as if though I'm doing something
So you
thorough
wouldn't
and proper.
switch to vinegar and
No, I hate vinegar.
vinegar
Jesus Christ,
and baking soda together to make a nice compost that naturally cleans.
Nah. Just the smell of that thing.
All right. Well, next, eco-friendly packaging. Cardboard, plant-based materials versus plastic packaging. I mean, we know we still use our boxes very much so. But I remember that back in the day when we would get items, say, from across the border, you would remember, Isani, when your family members or your friends would send barrels. They would come in those hard cardboard barrels. And now that has switched to plastic barrels. Now, I'll tell you this, it's still
those plastic barrels are garbage drums now.
I was just going to say it. They're reusable. But it takes me back to all the way then. And I'm not sure if that was their way of being more eco-friendly. But there are other ways that you can also skip the plastic containers or anything else that is plastic that you tend to throw away or dispose of quickly, and then move on to paper instead. In this case, we're looking at these bubble wraps that are often inside these packages that you would get. You can stack it with paper instead, with other items that can be biodegradable. Reusable water bottles, stainless steel glass versus plastic bottled water.
This should be a no-brainer for many of us Belizeans, especially those of us who chase trends and fads. We got with Stanley Cup, your Yeti Cup. Those serve as reusable containers versus you go to the store, you purchase $1 water or what have you, you end up tossing it in the garbage, and we don't know if it's ever used again. It ends up in the landfill somewhere, right?
I'd be interested to know if we could expect at any point a change in the packaging of our water when it comes to the plastics that we see.
Well,
the water pouches.
So, going back to the work that I mentioned, that was one of the questions, because there are some companies that are not necessarily in alignment with what the legislation would be calling for. But how do you get these big businesses to say, you know what, we'll revisit the way we pouch water, or the way we sell the $1, the 150 water, the gallon water, what have you. Maybe not so much the gallon water, because people use the gallon container for other purposes. But the smaller ones, how do you get them to move away from that particular manufacturing practice? That becomes the question.
Absolutely. Next is natural cotton or hemp clothing versus synthetic fabric clothing. This is going to be a difficult one when we're talking about the fashion industry as well, and the waste that is involved in that too, where clothing is concerned.
Natural cotton and hemp is a bit more expensive than polyester and nylon, right? You're also looking at the quote-unquote shelf life of the clothing item, because certain things you could wash for a number of times and then you start seeing it wear and tear. Other things are essentially you wash them once or twice, because the material is so cheap and easy to manufacture, it doesn't last. I don't know if you've been following what is an equally interesting environmental crisis that we're facing, the impact of fast fashion, right? We're in a consumer world where we purchase this piece of item, we wear it once or twice, it ends up moving on and ends up in the landfill as well. And it does not biodegrade as fast as possible. And that's the reason why, if you look around now, we have a lot of resale. You go thrift shopping.
Yes, that's an excellent point.
Precisely.
That is an excellent point. I was thinking more along the lines of, because, I mean, when we think of clothing in general, it's one of those items where it's not biodegradable, as you mentioned. And so when it comes to clothing, as I mentioned, when it's worn out, that has been a conversation that we've been having of where does it go?
Yeah.
Aside from the ones that can make it to these thrift stores,
there we go.
Is where it goes.
So you have places like like Peru, where they have created entire industries of reusing these fabrics and creating designer brands and what have you. Now, this is the result of people finding industry in abject poverty, right? But not all of us think like that. Many of us, when we're done with this particular shirt or this jeans pants or whatsoever, we don't donate it to charity per se. Some of us just toss it in the garbage, and like I said, it ends up at the landfill. It does not biodegrade fast enough. It's almost as destructive as the single-use plastics.
That is something right there. Now, sustainable toilet paper, recycled versus virgin paper toilet paper. Very similar to the paper towel conversation. Now, when we say sustainable toilet paper, we're not reusing the same one that you wiped with before, guys. Let's get it out of our heads. There's actual resourced paper that is a bit more on the sustainable side.
I wouldn't think that there's anyone out there thinking that.
But let's hope not.
The avoidance of doubt, right?
All right, electric or manual razors versus disposable razors. This is a good one. This is an excellent point. I think both male and female use these items.
So here we go again, right?
Because we know no here for your head is sunny. So how does it work? How does it happen?
I use a rechargeable clipper.
Okay, great.
Thanks to my beloved uncle. He hooked me up. But so in my bathroom at home, so I have my rechargeable set of clippers, and then the women in my household, it's all disposable.
Yeah.
So there's always this constant,
Yeah.
And for they won't. I don't know. I don't presume that they would ever switch to, anything that is rechargeable or what have you, because that would have happened a long time ago, in my opinion. Or maybe I need to make the move and
maybe
purchase
you introduce them to it. That's Christmas gift or birthday gift.
I'll give that some thought.
You should. I mean, just look at the screen over there. There's literally something that's more a one-time use. In some cases, the one on the left, though, there are changeable heads that you can.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like disposable, but it's still pretty much you can use the base of it. And then on the other side, there are these rechargeable razors. I know there are some people who might say that they don't necessarily like them because they give them razor bumps and stuff like that. These ones on the right, sometimes they're not waterproof. And ladies, we know how this whole thing works. So I'm sure that there's something for our concerns, though. Reusable coffee cups, stainless steel or bamboo versus disposable paper or plastic coffee cups. Very similar to the conversation that we were having surrounding the plastic bottles. I think this applies. Cloth napkins versus paper napkins. This one I think was more popular back in the day, when you would have your napkins on the table. Now it's more like the paper napkins that you'd get at a restaurant and whatnot.
I think cloth napkins is for fine dining.
Yeah. We've associated it with that, though. And that's the thing.
Paper napkins is on the go.
Yeah.
Right?
Plant-based meat alternatives versus animal-based meat products.
I can't do the plant-based. I'll be honest with myself. Nah. I need my slab of beef. No.
Now, this one is interesting because are we pushing in the conversation of being eco-friendly veganism then?
Well, if we go plant-based, I don't know. Let me not engage this conversation. So I don't put my foot in my mouth. I'll just stick with animal-based meat products for me. That's what works.
We got a clear point there. We won't stir up an ant's nest at the end of the show. Solar-powered or rechargeable batteries versus single-use disposable batteries. I agree with this. I will say, though, it's a bit more costly. It's an investment that you have to make. But in the longer run, I think it will serve to benefit you.
Yeah.
This is an interesting conversation, though. I think on the entire list that we provided, and I'm sure there are many, many more that we might have missed, there is an opportunity for us to start somewhere. We might not be able to make a bigger investment like solar items, but we could start with something as simple as getting rid of the plastic bags and using the market bags when we go to the grocery store. And you know, there are many opportunities that you get gifted these stainless steel straws. I remember when they were heavily pushed. And so that's also an opportunity for us to start with what you have. You don't have to go about purchasing these items, work with what you have, or even find a way to make them reusable as well.
I think part of it is making a conscious effort that you go about it perhaps one step at a time. And before you know it, in your space, either at work or at home, you would have collected all of these items, right? But I think one of the questions is, how far is too far when you're going the route of eco-friendly?
Ooh, that's an excellent question.
Because certain things you probably would find as an inconvenience to you just for the sake of going green. So those are certain things that you also have to consider.
But doesn't the inconvenience take place because the world around us haven't adapted? I think that's also an area of where the inconvenience has been.
A lot of it, in my opinion, is financial. Can you afford to fully go green against what you're making or what you have that you can purchase with? These are, in my opinion, the decisions that you need to make when deciding on a direction to go where eco-friendly versus quote-unquote traditional is concerned.
I think as we wrap up this conversation, I'd like to get some thoughts from our viewers, because we have many viewers tuning in, consumers, of course, but even business owners. And there has been an opportunity for, I think, every business to incorporate some aspect of being eco-friendly. So what has that conversation or that thought process been like for you in your own personal space, whether from a consumer standpoint or from an entrepreneurial or business standpoint? Has there been pushbacks because of the financial aspects, as Isani mentioned, which is very real on both sides, from consumers and even businesses, but also availability too for persons who might even want to make that switch? We don't know where to get plant-based toilet paper or plant-based paper towel, so to speak, or even the beeswax wrapping paper.
For that, I'll say it's on us to do our research.
Very
it
true.
It may very well be right next door, but if we don't do our research, we won't be able to identify where they're located, right?
Very, very true. And on a note that I'll leave you, are we considering going to cloth diapers? I want to know. We'll take our final break, but when we come back, we wrap things up.
And I'm a teacher, and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer. With these online that Belize Bank offered is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
That I know you love them all incandescent light, but they like give off a lot of heat, easy for broke, and use more than 5 times the energy. This year, we going LED, okay? Let it go. You're okay. Let it go.
Making the change to LED this holiday season can make a big difference in your energy usage. to your family about energy management today. Do a little, conserve a lot. Need help? The BEL 24/7 app has tools to get you on the right track. Download today and let's talk energy management.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connection. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
It's clearly documented that we have been having, as a planet, an increase in incidence of cancers. And remember, cancer is a genetic disease.
When you now look at somebody's DNA or their genetics, it can tell you everything about a person. So what we use next generation sequencing to do in particular is to look at hereditary cases of diseases.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Welcome back. This has been a wonderful show. We want to say a huge thank you to all of our guests who joined us this morning, but especially you guys for tuning in with us. It is January 9th, and if you're celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday to you. And if you'd like to give a birthday shout out, or if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also catch us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ, as well as Instagram at OYE Belize. Thank you so much for joining us, and please do us a favor and join us again tomorrow for Fun Friday when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
your hearts open.
Have a wonderful Thursday.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.